Welcome back to Shady Tales, where the line between reality and the unimaginable blurs with every story we tell. Tonight, we journey into the skies and beyond, to encounters that defy reason and chill the soul. They come without warning, slipping through the darkness, their presence barely a whisper, until it's too late. The lights in the sky that flicker in the distance, the cold, metallic figures that lurk just out of sight. They're watching, waiting. And when they arrive, the world you know will never be the same again. These are no ordinary tales of UFO sightings. What you're about to hear are true accounts from those who came face to face with something not of this earth and lived to tell the tale. But be warned, the next time you look up at the night sky, remember, you may not be alone. Let's dive into the shadows of the unknown, where the truth is far more terrifying than fiction. Welcome to Shady Tales.
Story 1. The Coldwater Canyon Abduction. And in the quiet, isolated hills of Coldwater Canyon, California, an encounter occurred that has remained obscure, shrouded in secrecy. On the night of June 12, 1973, Jennifer Little, a 21-year-old artist, was driving home after a late shift. The winding road through the canyon was deserted, save for the occasional flicker of wildlife in the underbrush. Jennifer was accustomed to driving alone at night, but on this particular evening, something felt off. An unnatural stillness hung in the air. As she turned a corner, her car's headlights caught something unusual, a metallic object hovering over the road, not far ahead. It wasn't a helicopter or anything recognizable. The object was cylindrical, glowing with a faint orange hue. It rotated slowly, suspended about 30 feet off the ground. Her engine sputtered, then died. The dashboard lights blinked out, and Jennifer found herself in complete darkness, except for the glow of the object ahead. Paralyzed with fear, Jennifer watched as the craft lowered silently onto the road, its surface rippling as though made of liquid metal. The air around her became dense, like something was compressing reality itself. Her car door swung open on its own, and despite every effort to move, she couldn't. Thin, tall figures began to emerge from the craft, beings with elongated heads, large black eyes, and an unsettling lack of any facial features except for 2 small slits where a nose should be. Without a word or sound, they surrounded her car, one being placed a hand on her forehead, and in that instant, everything went dark. Jennifer woke up hours later, lying in the middle of a field more than 2 miles from where her car had stalled. She was barefoot, and her clothes were soaked in morning dew, yet her skin was marked with strange, geometric burns. The car was found abandoned in the canyon, still intact but without a trace of her. She couldn't recall how she had gotten out of the car, nor how she had ended up in the field. For weeks after the encounter, Jennifer experienced strange dreams, visions of glowing symbols, alien landscapes, and a sense that she had been marked. Worse, she would wake in the middle of the night to find her bedroom filled with the same orange glow she had seen that night in the canyon. The worst part was the sensation that something was watching her, even in her most private moments. She became reclusive, terrified of the dark and of driving alone. To this day, the Coldwater Canyon incident remains an unsolved mystery, buried under the larger UFO reports of the time, but those close to Jennifer know she was never the same.
Story 2. The Vanishing of Frederick Valentich. On October 21st, 1978, Frederick Valentich, a 20-year-old Australian pilot, disappeared over the Bass Strait under circumstances that remained both chilling and unexplained. Valentich was on a routine training flight from Melbourne to King Island when he radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control to report something bizarre. At 7:06 p.m., Valentich calmly stated that a large unknown craft was hovering about 1,000 feet above him. It wasn't a conventional aircraft. He described it as long, with a shiny metallic surface and green lights that seemed to pulsate rhythmically. He reported the object moving at incredible speed, circling around his plane as though playing a game of cat and mouse. "Melbourne, this strange aircraft is orbiting on top of me. It seems to be playing some sort of game," he said. His voice remained calm, but there was an undercurrent of confusion and fear. Valentich noted that the object was not registering on his radar, and that his engine was beginning to sputter. He added, "It's not an aircraft." Suddenly, Valentich's transmissions were interrupted by a strange, metallic scraping noise. Some described it as a grating sound, similar to static or an electrical disturbance. His last words were chilling. "It's hovering, and it's not an aircraft." Then, radio silence. Despite an extensive search, neither Valentich nor his aircraft were ever found. What makes the case particularly disturbing is that several people in the area reported seeing strange lights in the sky that night, some describing a greenish glow above the Bass Strait. Investigators were baffled. There was no evidence of wreckage, and the weather was clear, ruling out a natural accident. The Valentich disappearance remains one of the most unsettling UFO encounters, not just for its eerie final moments, but because of the complete vanishing of both man and machine. In the years following, various conspiracy theories arose, some claiming Valentich had been abducted, while others suggested a government cover-up. His family never received closure, and his disappearance remains one of the most well-documented and mysterious UFO cases in history. Story 3: The Allagash Abductions. In August 1976, 4 friends, Jim Weiner, Jack Weiner, Chuck Rack, and Charlie Foltz, set out on a remote camping trip in the wilderness of Allagash, Maine. The men, experienced outdoorsmen, were looking forward to a peaceful weekend of fishing and stargazing. What they didn't know was that they were about to experience one of the strangest, most terrifying alien abduction stories in history. On their second night, as they sat around the campfire, they noticed a bright light in the sky, far too large and bright to be a star. At first they thought it might be a helicopter or airplane, but the light moved too erratically, zigzagging and changing direction with impossible speed. As the light hovered closer, the men began to feel uneasy. They couldn't take their eyes off it, and an overwhelming sense of dread settled over them. Determined to investigate, they launched their canoe onto the nearby lake to get a closer look. That's when the light descended rapidly, now a glowing, pulsating orb. It hovered just above the water, its reflection rippling across the lake's surface. Without warning, a beam of light shot out from the object, engulfing the canoe in an intense, blinding white light. The next thing the men knew, they were back at their campsite. Hours had passed, but their campfire, which should have been nearly out, was still burning brightly. All 4 men were disoriented, and felt an inexplicable terror. None of them spoke about what had just happened, each too disturbed by the missing time and strange sensations they were experiencing. Over the following days, each of the men began having vivid nightmares about being on a spacecraft, lying on cold metal tables. They recalled tall, thin figures with large eyes hovering over them, performing strange examinations. They remembered sharp, probing instruments and an overwhelming sense of helplessness. The most horrifying detail? They were all awake during the procedures, but paralyzed, unable to scream or move as the beings conducted their invasive tests. Years later, after struggling with recurring nightmares and disturbing memories, the group underwent hypnosis therapy. During the sessions, all 4 men independently described the same horrifying details: being taken aboard a craft, undergoing physical examinations, and seeing each other trapped in otherworldly chambers. The Allagash Abductions remain one of the most compelling multiple witness alien abduction cases. To this day, the men stand by their story, and no rational explanation has ever been found for what happened that night.
Story 4: The Kelly Hopkinsville Encounter. On a warm summer evening in 1955, the Sutton family and their friends were enjoying a peaceful night at their farmhouse in Kelly, Kentucky. Around 7 p.m., Billy Ray Taylor, a guest at the house, went outside to fetch water from the well when he saw something strange in the sky. A bright, silvery object streaking through the air, trailing a rainbow of lights. The object descended rapidly, disappearing behind the tree line. He rushed back inside, breathless, telling everyone he had just seen a flying saucer. The group laughed it off as a joke, but Billy Ray insisted on what he had seen. Moments later, the dogs outside began barking ferociously, growling at something lurking in the darkness. The family, now on edge, armed themselves with rifles and waited. Around 8 p.m., the quiet was broken by strange noises coming from the woods, metallic, clicking sounds that echoed eerily through the night. Soon after, they saw them. From the darkness emerged small figures, no more than 3 feet tall, with glowing eyes, spindly arms, and large bulbous heads. Their skin gleamed with a metallic sheen, almost like they were covered in silver foil. The beings moved silently and slowly, their hands raised as if in surrender, but something about their appearance was deeply unsettling. Without hesitation, Billy Ray and another man, Lucky Sutton, fired their rifles at the creatures. The bullets appeared to hit them, but made no impact. The creatures simply recoiled, then retreated into the shadows, only to reappear moments later in a different spot. At one point, one of the beings was hit at point-blank range, but instead of falling, it seemed to float backward and vanish into the trees. Terrified, the family retreated inside the house, locking the doors and barricading the windows, but the creatures weren't done. They approached the house, peering in through the windows, their glowing eyes following the family's every movement. They climbed onto the roof, scratching at the shingles and tapping on the walls. For hours, the siege continued, with the family shooting at the creatures to no avail. By dawn, the beings had disappeared, but the terror remained. The family fled to the police station, visibly shaken, and reported what had happened. Officers investigated the farmhouse, finding strange scorch marks on the ground and a metallic residue, but no trace of the creatures. The Kelly Hopkinsville encounter is one of the most detailed and well-documented UFO sightings, with multiple witnesses and physical evidence. The Sutton family stands by their account, and the strange beings that terrorize them remain unexplained. And there you have it, dear watchers. Encounters that leave us questioning what truly lies beyond our world. Were they visitors from distant stars, or something far more sinister, hidden in the shadows of our reality? The truth may forever remain out of reach, lost in the cold, silent void of the unknown. But as you turn off the lights tonight, remember, these are not just stories. For every account we hear, there are countless more left untold, buried in fear and silence. The night sky above you may seem vast and empty, but who knows what lurks just beyond the stars, watching, waiting. Until next time, fellow travelers, keep your eyes to the skies and your mind open to the unexplainable. This is Shady Tales, where the truth hides in the shadows. Stay curious and stay safe.